What is up, guys? It's Justin, and yesterday was a pretty big day in sports, specifically for the NBA. There was the NBA draft, and there was also a big trade between the Boston Celtics and the New Jersey Nets. So I'm going to give you my opinion on those. Let's get right into it.
J Swag Vlogs. It's in the game.
Alright, so I guess we can start right off with the NBA draft. Let's just go through the first couple picks. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't like, and then we'll move on. So Anthony Bennett, first off to the Cavs. Second was Victor Oladipo out of Indiana to the Magic. Otto Porter from Georgetown went to the Wizards, third. The fourth was Cody Zeller out of Indiana to the Bobcats. Fifth was Alex Len from Maryland going to the Suns. Going sixth was Nerlens Noel to the Pelicans, and seventh was Ben McElmore to the Kings. So first off, Anthony Bennett, I don't think anyone saw him going first overall, including myself. I thought either Alex Len, possibly Ben McElmore, but I certainly did not see Anthony Bennett going first. He's a big guy from UNLV, averaged 16 points and 8 rebounds last year, his freshman year at UNLV, and he's a big guy. He's got some good offensive moves. He's pretty good at defense. I just don't know if he's completely NBA ready yet. He doesn't seem completely matured into the best player that he could be. So I don't know if he'll be starting either, with seeing as the Cavs already have Anderson Varejao and Tristan Thompson. Yes, Anderson Varejao is injury prone and Tristan Thompson isn't, an amazing power forward, but I just don't think that Anthony Bennett has proven enough to me to be starter worthy, but I mean, he could come out of nowhere and do really well. Second was Victor Oladipo to the Magic. I really like this pick for them. He's a great guard. 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists a game last year, his sophomore year at Indiana. He's a defensive monster, and he's a tank as well. He can play for a majority of the game, every game. I mean, at least he did in college. So I like his potential. He has a nice touch on offense. Like I said, he's really good at defense. Got the long arms, and he's pretty quick as well. So look for him to have a solid, long career in the NBA. Otto Porter to the Wizards. I really, really like this pick for them specifically, but anyone would have gotten a good deal for him. He's a small forward out of Georgetown, averaged 16 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals per game last year at Georgetown, and he did that on 35 minutes as well. And that is a lot because he played as like a small forward, and he probably will be a small forward in the NBA. He could play power forward because he's a little bit on the chunky side. So it depends on how the Wizards try to use him, either as a small forward, they'll probably get him a little more fit, get him to drop some of that weight, or they have him keep it so he can be a small forward and power forward. But I really like the fact that he got those 2 steals a game, which is key, and he's very offensively gifted. He needs to work on his defense a little bit, but other than that, I think he is one of the best players in this draft. Fourth pick, Cody Zeller from Indiana to the Bobcats. Did not see that one coming at all. Really don't know why they would go with Cody Zeller over Alex Len, because Alex Len is just better than him in every way, in my opinion. But regardless, Cody Zeller did average 16.5 points per game and 8 rebounds a game last year at Indiana. And he's also 7 foot tall and 240 pounds. So he's definitely, his body is ready for the NBA. A lot of the guys coming from making the transition from college to professional, they need to either, they need to bulk up or lose weight so they can play a smaller position. But Cody Zeller is definitely NBA ready. I think he has a nice post game. He's a good defender, and he's a big body. So look for him to play probably power forward for them, but he could play center as well, depending on how they want to use him. Fifth pick, Alex Len to the Suns. I like this one. 12 points a game, 2.1 blocks a game, and 8 rebounds. He's not the most offensively gifted guy, but they don't really need that on the Suns with Goran Dragic and Luis Scola and Wesley Johnson and Michael Beasley. They have a bunch of offensive guys there, but he's definitely good at defense. I mean, being 7 feet and 1 inch and 255 pounds, he's a big dude, but he's good. He's defensively gifted, like I said, two blocks a game, which is good. So look for him to do well in the NBA as well. 6th pick, Nerlens Noel by the Pelicans, but he was traded, well, as a proposed trade for him, and the Pelicans would also send a first-round pick from next year to the 76ers for Drew Holiday. At first, I did not understand this trade at all, because I don't know why the 76ers would give up Drew Holiday, but then they ended up drafting Michael Carter-Williams from Syracuse. He's a great point guard, so they're clearly in a rebuilding mode if you're shipping out Drew Holiday, who's one of the best point guards in the league. So Nerlens Noel then being on the 76ers, I don't really like Nerlens Noel at all, to be honest with you. He played a couple games, like 5 or 6, his freshman year at Kentucky, tore his ACL. Yes, he's been in rehab all these months, but I just don't know if he's really NBA ready, being 6'10" and I think it was 205 pounds. He weighed in less than a lot of the guards at the draft combine, which is not good when you're trying to be a power forward or center in the NBA. So he's definitely going to have some bulking up to do if he wants to play down low, or else he's just going to get beaten up. And then finally, the 7th pick, Ben McElmore to the Kings. He's a shooting guard. Really like this guy. Could have gone first, in my opinion. He's, I think, the best player in the draft this year. 16 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and he also shot 42% from three-point range. Some people have been comparing him to Ray Allen just because he is such a good shooter from out there. He doesn't take a ton of threes, but he takes enough where he makes, I think, around 2 a game. He's extremely offensively gifted. He's good at defense as well. He's got those long arms. He's 6'5", I think, so he's a pretty good size for the shooting guard position, especially on the Kings. I think he'll do really well, because he'll have DeMarcus Cousins in the post, so they can have a good in and out game, and also have Tyreek Evans. So look for them to do better this year. They still have a point guard position that's a little void, but I think they'll do well. And then also, a couple of other picks I want to go into just because of my bias. The Knicks took Tim Hardaway Jr. 24th in the first round. And I really like this pick for them. He is 6'6" and 205 pounds. That's a pretty big shooting guard. Just the same as his dad was, Tim Hardaway Sr. And he's a good offensive asset, 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.4 assists per game. So he'll be just what they need to make up for not having J.R. Smith anymore, assuming they don't sign him again, because he did waive his option so he could become a restricted free agent. So working, with Raymond Felton and having Carmelo there as well, it'll take the ball out of Carmelo's hands a little bit so he can work off the ball a little more. So that'll be a good pick for them. And then right after, 25th, the Clippers selected Reggie Bullock from UNC. And I honestly don't know how he got this far down. I think the Clippers honestly got a steal. He had 14 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game last year at UNC. He also averaged 2.5 three-pointers a game and shot 44% from beyond the arc. So that's some pretty good stats from three-point range, because usually those people chuck a lot of threes and make a couple, so their percentage isn't that good, but 44% is really good. And also to average 2.5 threes a game. That'll be good, especially with him working with Chris Paul, so he doesn't really, he wasn't that good at creating his own shot at UNC, so we won't have to worry about that much. So they'll have a good offense, especially with Doc Rivers being there now. I really like that option. So that's all I got for the draft. Now we can move on to the Celtics-Nets trade. So, yesterday this trade went through, and there's been a couple of different variations of it, but the one that I got, according to ESPN, is the Nets will get Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry, and the Celtics will get Keith Bogans through a sign-and-trade, Chris Joseph, whoever that is, Chris Humphries, Marshawn Brooks, and Gerald Wallace, and a first-round pick in 2014, 2016, and 2018. Now, those 3 picks sound really bad, like they're giving up a lot, but assuming the Nets do well, as they did this year, and they'll probably do better, those won't be, very high picks, like top 10 picks, so those aren't too bad. Keith Bogans, Chris Joseph weren't that big of options for them, too big of assets for them. Chris Humphries, it's good to get rid of that expiring contract. Marshawn Brooks, they just weren't utilizing him with Joe Johnson playing majority of the minutes. And Gerald Wallace was just a liability at this point, getting old and just he was a step behind everyone on the court that he was guarding. I still just don't really like this trade for the Nets. It's a great trade for the Celtics because they get a bunch of guys that they can start. They're obviously trying to rebuild. So Marshawn Brooks, I think, will do well there because he averaged, I think, 30 points a game when he was in college. So he's definitely a good scorer, which they'll need, and Rajon Rondo can help him out there. So that'll be good for them. And Chris Humphries is good. He'll probably fill the void for Kevin Garnett. With Jeff Green being there, now that Paul Pierce is out, Jeff Green will probably play more of the small forward position, and then Chris Humphries and Brandon Bass, the power forward, maybe center positions, but that'll be some good rebounding there. And Gerald Wallace will be a good, another small forward, power forward for them that they can rotate in. So they'll have a big bench, they'll have depth. But the fact that the Nets gave all that up for Kevin Garnett, who's really getting old, and as he gets older, is losing a lot of his, abilities. Paul Pierce, I do like, and Jason Terry, who really, in my opinion, since he left the Mavericks after winning the championship, just hasn't done much. Yes, Jason Terry is good off the bench as a sixth man. He'll score some quick points for you. I don't really know if the Nets really need that, but it'll be good to give Joe Johnson a rest every once in a while. Paul Pierce I like because he still got it. He still averaged, I think, 19 points a game last year. And he can still shoot the ball from three-point range. And hasn't completely lost his step, but he's definitely a little slower than some of the people that he's going to have to guard. And Kevin Garnett, like I said, he's kind of old and just kind of losing it a little bit. So I don't know if I really like that, but the one thing I don't really like about this trade is the fact that now they will have Deron Williams, Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Brook Lopez as their assumed starting five. Deron Williams needs the ball in his hands because he likes to score more than assists now since he's come to the Nets. Joe Johnson likes to have the ball in his hands because he's just a scorer. And Paul Pierce likes to have the ball in his hands because that's what he did in Boston all these years, he was their scorer, and they, relied on him for that. And Brook Lopez, not as much as those guys, but he does, he's really only an offensive guy. So that's the thing, is I just don't know if it's going to get too crowded and they're not going to be able to build good chemistry together because they all like to have the ball in their hands. I'd like to see where it goes. I think overall it's a good trade for both of them, but I think the Celtics definitely got the better end of it. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you think should have gone first in the NBA draft or what you like for their picks. Let me know what you think about this trade. And that'll about do it for me today. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.